data visualization exploration tool that's actually open source. And Preset is kind of like the astronomer is to Airflow and Databricks is to Spark. Preset is like the company that the founder of Superset has started, and they provide, you know, a managed environment and other things that I'll let the expert tell us. So with that, we'll turn it over to you, Eugenia, and take it away.
Let me first share my screen to be sure. Host disable participant screen sharing. So you need to
oh yeah, let's do that. Let's give you some more
power.
So yes. I do this tutoring thing I just started, and they put you in breakout rooms one-on-one with a kid, and they did that and didn't give me access to share a screen, and so I'm sitting there like for 10 minutes. Like, I don't really know what to talk about. We're supposed to be reading. Anyway, we gotcha. Oh, and Daniel's with Preset also. I didn't see he was in here, so
yeah.
If he's jumping in, he's with Eugenia, so do not think anyone's taken over without permission. If you can give him access to Andrew, maybe I can.
Yeah, you should have access now to share.
Okay, perfect. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, coming through great.
Okay, I'm gonna use the presentation. Thank you very much, first of all, for having me here. It's like I didn't know how this event runs, so I put on a Slido in case that you wanted to have some questions or something. And if I don't have the time, I can answer the questions after, okay? Just to be sure, but you have your own format to ask questions, so it's like you don't have to use it. So before starting, I'm going to talk a little bit about me. It's like you see me there, and I'm passionate about data and getting value of the data. I'm an engineering background, and I studied to be an engineer. I did master degrees in information technology, but I found my passion to talk with customers, and make the customer successful. So I joined Preset, employee number 10. Now we're over 40, so it was fast. But before joining Superset, I worked for Vertica, that is a big data database. By this time of the year, for the last 10 years, I used to spend that time in San Diego because I work a lot with the Intuit team. So it was tax season, so I have to spend my whole March and April in San Diego to be sure that the Vertica database there in Intuit will hold it with all the demands with the taxes. But now, so many years helping the customer to put a lot of data in their databases that I decided to move and work, to get value of that data with some visualization. I put this, as I mentioned, I didn't know how you run it, but I think that after talking with you guys, I got a sense of, I wanted to see who were my audience, but I think I got a sense, so you don't have to answer. But if you want to answer, the Slido code is San Diego and today's date, 210304. Okay. What is Apache Superset? As Dustin already said, it's an open source data visualization platform. It is very simple, it's very powerful, and you can see here some of the type of dashboards and charts that you can do with it. It has a very extensive library. If you think about it, it's like a superset. It has seen tremendous work grow over the years. The community has grown a lot. And you can see that there was a bump in the number of stars because we were an incubator. Now we are a major project in the Apache community. And that gives us a lot of a bump in the number of stars in the last month. You will say probably the stars and what it means, and it's very difficult to measure, how successful is a Apache project. But if I compare the stars with other projects, it's like Apache Superset has 35,000 and Spark has 28,000. And I come with the database background, and Hadoop has 11,000, So if you consider the stars kind of likes, we can say that it's a very, very popular project, for data visualization. What it makes it like powerful because it has a distributed architecture. The main goal of Superset is to make everything a data team, And if you wanted to have everything on a data team like Airbnb, where they born, it's like Airbnb has 2,500 weekly active users, So like you need to scale fast. And the other things that it has, it support any database that is SQL speaker, So it's like if you have your data lake in Snowflake, in Presto, in Vertica, you should be able to connect to Superset access to the data. So what I see here is the scale uses Flask as the web interface. Actually, one of the creators of Flask is part of a preset team. It caches the aggregated data. So what it does that if you have 2,000 people querying the same dashboard, it's like they can take it from the cache, what is going to make it very fast to respond. The cache, you can set it to expire and to those different things. And that is when you're going to hit the database. But in modern databases, if you can say, for example, if you're using a Snowflake and you wanted to do 2,000 report, you don't want it to do 2,000 queries because they're going to charge you for the number of queries that you run in the database. So why you don't cache the results, and just cache it when you're going to load the data. So they integrate very nice with Airflow that you can say, I load the data, refresh my cache. So you don't have the dashboard of the queries hitting the database all the time. If there is no SQL connector or SQL speaker thing, it's like our team have worked in doing some database connectors that you can connect to Superset. So it's a broad ecosystem. I already mentioned this, but I have this slide here. So, and Preset, that is the company that I work, is the SaaS data exploration of Superset. So it was the Preset founder, is founded by Maxine. I heard that you guys were talking about Apache Airflow. He was the creator of Apache Airflow too. And he is the creator of Apache Superset as the open source. He's a very well-known data engineer, very famous. And I think that what brings all his wisdom, and knowledge about data, how to work with data, I think that because he has been working for companies where data is the real main source of the business, like Airbnb, Facebook, Lyft. Actually, I met him in Facebook. He was my customer when I was doing a vertical implementation there. So was lucky enough to meet him there, and is why I follow him to his new company. So I'm gonna do a demo now. So you get I don't want it to make it about slides, but more about what is Superset. Let me start. It's I'm gonna start to here. This is Preset. As I mentioned, it's a managed service of Superset. So I have a lot of teams, and each of these teams have a workspace. And in those workspaces, you have an instance of Superset. So this is what you will see if you go and install Superset, using the open source. So if you do the Docker, pull the Docker from the repository and install it, this is what you will see, okay? What Preset does is to make it easier for managing security, there's a SOC compliance, it's all the other values to be a managed service, so you don't have to worry about the scaling in, scaling out. So we have a nice homepage. As you can see, you can have dashboards, and depend of your role is if you are a data explorer, it's probably you're gonna start looking data using dashboards, But so let me open one dashboard. For example, I'm gonna open this that is actually it's a Shihab metrics dashboard where we keep track of all the development that we have in Shihab. Max wrote a blog about how to pull this data, so we can. I think I even have the information from Airflow because you guys were looking for some information. So I even have the information from Airflow, so where you can see it's how was the contribution of Airflow over time, the number of PRs, the number of stars, how we grow over the years, something like that. But because we monitor more than anything Apache Superset, I still have the incubator. But as you can see, it's I have a good slice and dice of the data using filters where you can just present the data to make it easier to represent. And here you can see how much the preset contributes to the community. It's to the software, but at the same time, it's a very healthy community. We still have other companies that they do the 51% of the PR merge in the last 30 days. We have RV still very strong committer. And you can see here over the years, it's the different colors, how the project was growing, and depend where Max was working. And this is when he Superset born, sorry. And you can see Airbnb, how the collaboration continued over the year, and this is when Preset was founded, and how the green shows that how many collaboration PRs were merged by the organization. So as you can see here is if you are a data consumer, you can see the data here. Or if you are a data engineer, you can prepare this type of dashboards. And if you wanted to explore the data, you just do explore. And you have your data here, and you can play. You have what are the data that you have. It has a nice semantic layer. It's very light. But in the case, for example, if I edit this, you can see that I do calculated columns, in case that you wanted to build, in this case, to build links to the GitHub repository. You can do metrics. You can take metrics. It's like in case that you wanted to do any type of calculation. For example, here you wanted to see the percentage. So as a data engineers, you can prepare a semantic layer so your users, when they are using all the metrics are already calculated and they don't have to think about how to do some type of calculation. You can even have the ability to say in the semantic layer, I can certify it, and I can put the date 02 that you as the data engineer, you can say, like use this metric is certified. So when they see it here, they see the stamp. So this is what we call the Explorer window, where you're gonna start to explore to build a chart that for your dashboard or just to explore the data. You have different type of like just a click, and with the report, it's like you can do, in this case, it's like just do different granularity. You have the ability to do some advanced functions. In this case, what you see here is not the real data, but it's a rolling average, so you can just decide, instead to be the rolling average, I wanted to see the standard deviation, so you can define different metrics. If I don't put anything in the analytics, probably you're going to see a lot of, it's like spikes. So you can smooth the curve. You have the ability to apply some Python functions too in some of the charts. So it make it very easy, for you to go and explore the data with just clicks, And when you don't like the chart, or if you're not decided that if this is the type of chart that you have, it has a very good, rich library of charts. And these charts libraries are growing. It's like we just change the library plugin, and now it integrates very well with Apache eCharts. And you have the ability to add more charts if you want. It's like the preset team is planning to add different new charts, but there are other companies, that have added a lot of charts too. So depending on the data type that you have, you can just choose the chart that you prefer. It's like, for example, if I choose this one, that is one of the new charts using the eChart library. It has a lot of more customization. I can just take it from here, and do bars, and I can do stack bars, and I don't like the bars, I can do a smooth line and use it as as a area chart. I can put the markers, I can probably not stack it. So it's like you really can play with your data and Explorer, but for what I heard, you are also data engineers, So sometimes it's like, I'm also an engineer in the background. When this is really nice to make it, I feel sometimes more comfortable, and is to run in a query, You have the ability, for example, I took this chart, you have the ability to say, what is the chart that the superset builds, to create this chart, okay? And you can just go here and say, okay, I'm gonna explore this in my SQL lab, and then you can play with the chart, and you can start to add parameters. It has you can do Shimsha template here. I'm probably gonna break it because I didn't prepare a scripted demo. But it's like you have the ability to put templates here, and you can play with your data, you can change your query, and depending on the database that you're using, you can use advanced analytics, if database machine learning too, because many databases already have all algorithms like linear regression. So you can use the query that you want and as powerful, that you want it and your database allows you. And you can browse the data from here. For example, if I take this table, you can see this this is a database that I have here in my house, so sorry for the performance. But I also have a BigQuery database, as I mentioned, where you have a lot of data. For example, I think I have a table that is called cases TS. And you have the preview, and you also have the ability to have autocomplete, for example, if I select my table and I start to write my query, I say select start from cases TS, where country is equal US. And once that you make your query, as I mentioned, is as a fast and I grown query. I think I'm missing the schema. Only me call the schema cases TS the same as the table. And once that you're happy with your
You're muted, Eugenia.
Okay, I don't know. It seems like somebody tried to unmute me or mute me.
So, sorry, that was actually me. So I actually hit the button. So I apologize.
No problem. I just saw a message there and say, oh my God, what is this? Okay, so the idea is you can explore the data, you can download, you can write your query. So it has a nice GUI interface. And once that you're happy with your data, you can say, I'm going to explore this data. And I'm going to call this data virtual data set that we call my test cases table, So I save it. And when you have your query, so you can go from your query to have the ability to build a chart at the top of it, So for example, I just did a query, I think it was data from the COVID, So if I do metrics, I say, okay, I wanted to see a simple metrics. I wanted to see the new cases, and I wanted to read, you can have the ability to do the sum of them. You can write a custom SQL if you wanted to do some type of case, like a case when the new depth are greater than this, I'm going to use that. So you can manipulate the data. I'm going to use just a simple metric. And then I say, I'm going to group by province. And when you run this query, it's when you run this, you can see the query that is built in the background. And that is what is run in the database. So and this is how you play with it. I don't know if you have specific questions, but it is very intuitive. It's very easy to use. And when you are happy with your chart, for example, this one, I'm going to make it stack bars. I don't know what happened there. Some data cleaning is necessary. When you're happy with your chart, you say, okay, I'm going to save this as my line chart. And you have the ability to select and put it in any of your dashboard that you have. And you just can say San Diego meetup dashboard. And I create this dashboard and I go. And that is when you start to build your dashboard, that it has kind of metrics set up that you just can go. You can just create charts and save them, or you just can go and select charts that you already know those charts, that you created in the past, and you just can start. I'm gonna to make it easier. You just can do insert a row, and I also can put a header here, and add more charts. Okay, so and add. This chart seems like it doesn't have the right data set. And when you save it, and your dashboard is ready. And now what I think is to make every team a data team, one of the things that I feel like it is very, very powerful is that as you can see as I demo, you have the ability, if you don't know SQL, you can create your chart. if you're a data engineer and you are in charge of the data governance, you can create your metrics, all the semantic layers. So the people that wanted to explore the data, they have the ability, the metrics that they need. And if you're a data scientist, more like not so much a data scientist, because at this moment we don't have so much machine learning, but it's in the roadmap to do an integration with notebooks, have a notebook hub where you can work on there. But if you write queries, complex queries, it's like you have the ability to do that and come up to the dashboard. So I do feel that it's a platform for everyone, to share like knowledge and share the knowledge of the data. One of the things that when I used to work in vertical that I noticed is that many of my users, like as I intro to Apple or Facebook or most of the customers that I work, they have big amount of data, but they have data silos. It's like, I feel like a Hadoop came here to resolve the data silos of the data storage, but I feel like now the people have is like a visualization silos, because they have those big databases and they have a Tableau for some type of report, Beaver for writing queries. They have a Python to do some type of charts, But at the end, people don't collaborate so much in one platform because everyone have a different way to see the information. And I feel like a superset is going to be the one that is going to try to remove the data visualization, changing that culture, And one of the ways that it does it is because you can share everything with URLs. It's very easy to say, hey, Rob, look at this dashboard. What do you think about it? And you can do the same thing with charts. It's like share the chart, you get this, and you copy. You can just send it to someone to look at it, and boom, they get, pinned to this chart where they can see that information. So I see that is a very big power thing from a superset. If you see the data set here, as I mentioned, it's like you have the ability to connect your tables from your database, if it's Hadoop or whatever database that you're using, but you also have the ability to build queries at the top of your database. That is what we call virtual data set. And you can just change this query and adapt it, and you can synchronize the columns in case that you change the query. And you also have the ability, to go and add columns, calculated columns or metrics. To move from here to a chart, you can just go simply doing chart and create a chart, or when you're just looking at your data, you just click there and you're ready to build data, It also has, let me run this. It was there, sorry. And we also start to integrate some of the things. It's like, for example, this is the data from last week. Probably I don't have it has a smart date, that you can just say in the filter, I wanted to see 2 months ago. And now, I don't know when was the last time I updated this data. It's that account, so I'm gonna change it to do account, a simple metrics that is gonna be new cases. Zoom. It might need more data. It's like let me say 6 months ago and now. See if the data comes. Okay, so you have the ability to also, in some of the charts, we integrate it, and that is the vision the Superset has too. It's like a more preset, is to integrate with the advanced analytics. So we did an integration with Prophet that is a library, a machine learning library created. It's a Python, it could be in Python, I think in Java too. It was created in Facebook, and they are adding a lot to that. We integrated in some of the charts so you can enable forecasts, and you can see what is your level of confidence, your confidence interval. You can change it. Depending on the data, you can put, if you're talking about, yearly, like your growth of tomatoes, it's like a probably yearly seasonality is important, or weekly. In this case, we're talking about the COVID cases. It doesn't have a difference. So you can start to do some type of predictions. Okay. As I mentioned, this is running in my database here in my house. So probably it is some slow, but until this comes, I can show you other things that you also make it a good place, to centralize the data, to really democratize the data. This is another workspace that you have. And now you have also the ability to send charts, emails. That is not the screen that I was looking. Let me get to another place. Like we enable, it is not enabled. I thought it was enabled, but we do have the ability, to send alerts and reports. It's like that is, it has to be enabled, and it's not enabled in my workspace. But if you look at the documentation, if you're interested, or I can show you another time, another demo, it's like the ability to send reports. These charts came back. This is I have 10 forecast periods. This is how the number of cases, the new cases, is going to grow based on the Prophet algorithms, to do forecasts. So I don't know, you guys have any questions? It's like as I mentioned, it's like I didn't script a demo because it's very intuitive and very easy to use, but you have
that was a great overview. I'm sure we'll have some questions here. Maybe I'll sneak one in, and then apparently there's one on Slido we can do. So I wanted to ask about streaming data. If you have data that's kind of real time, what would be the typical setup there? Would it be going to a database in real time and you can set some kind of refresh interval, or is there a way to like somehow connect directly to a stream? Or what kind of use cases do you know of for that so far?
Yes, what we have is like let me show you a little bit. If you see what this was fetched a few seconds ago, so let me go to my other one of my other dashboards, because that was an example dashboard. But for example, this dashboard is a dashboard from my Vertica database, and you can see that this was cached 5 hours ago. Okay, so like if you're using a database like a Druid, something that you stream data, and time series is very important, you do have the ability when you have here, to say, as I mentioned, it has a cache here, so the data that is pulling is from the cache. But if you want this to be refreshed, you have the ability to say set an auto refresh interval. And what you do here is just to say how often you want this. Is like you doing nothing, go and grabbing the data. Okay. What it does is to execute the query again, and that is one of the features that the team is thinking now to implement. That if I show you what we cache here, it's like I'm gonna just put it here. If you see, it's like I came fast because it said that it was in the cache. If I wanted to refresh, it's just I click here. But what we cache in Redis is the JSON that is the output of the query, So we are not caching raw data. And what we wanted to do that is not there, but is coming, it is the ability to append to the cache, So if you're streaming, in this case, I'm doing the whole last quarter. I'm not going and I'm trying to pull the data from the last quarter, but I'm just going, and trying to pull the data from the last time that I refresh it. So that is the main goal. But if your database, if you tune your database, like I work in Vertica for 10 years before this, and you have all those customers that are consuming the data from Kafka. If you tune your database to perform well, it's like a superset. It should not take more time than it executes in the database. Does it make sense? The ability to refresh the cache is there, but the performance is also what the performance of your database is what really affects the performance of Superset. What is a good thing, because when I work in Vertica, one of the major issues that I have, it was that other visualizations tool create a really, really complex queries, If you try to look at a Tableau query that was executed in a Vertica database, it was a mess, a lot of cross-join, casting plus casting plus casting, hitting the database all the time, trying to get what is the column name so that you can have this visualization. But what they really made me fall in love with Superset was how clean were the queries. So what it makes it lightweight and powerful is that it's relying in your database. If you scale your Druid cluster with more nodes, if you scale your Hadoop with more workers, like, why are you going to scale your visualization tool? It's like, take the power of that, you know? What it make it very lightweight, you know? And as a SaaS services, it make it very economic too, because we really don't execute too much compute. So our pricing model is pretty cheap compared to the other visualization tools. Make sense? Probably I said
Yeah,
too-
it makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing about the simplifying the queries. That's definitely something I've had the pain of on Tableau and things in the past. So cool. We got quite a few, or 4 or 5 questions in chat. Would you like me to read them off to you?
Yep. But
Okay,
like,
so one, I'm going to start with one that went in through Slido. Is Dylan's asking, can you create buttons or chart? Can you create button chart tools which execute custom scripts like Bouquet? Dylan, feel free to expand on that if I completely botched it.
yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's like, you can call APIs, you know, it's like you can create, if I show you, you should be able to create custom charts, you know, as I mentioned, actually, if you go to preset blogs, maybe you can take a look at there. I think there was Hello World. So you wanted to build your visualization plugin, you know, that is a kind of getting started, you know, to build your own visualization. So if you create a visualization that is going to be calling, you know, extra Python script or whatever, it's like you should be able to do it. It's like in this case, what it does is to take everything and put it in a JSON file. So if you follow the instruction, like you just take a database and put everything in a JSON file. Or you have the ability, for example, if I go to the dashboard that I was showing you, I don't know which one was it, that it has links, you know, I think it's this one. You can create, you know, with calculated metrics, it's like a calculated columns. You can create calls to API. So when the people click here, boom, execute it. In this case, what it does is just to move it to a page because I just make a reference, but you can make a API call. That is a good case. I always looking for material for our YouTube. So I think I can do something like demo or something like that. So sending the result to you. Make sense?
Hope that was helpful. Feel free to chime in, Dylan, if you had any follow-ups or send more details along. Okay, he says thank you. Great. So Keegan, I'm guessing that answered your question too. There's a link for how to create custom charts. You can try it out and tell us how hard it is to do.
There is, I can send you, there is also a meetup that we did that is in our YouTube channel when they explain, you know, it's like with more details how to do it. So I think it's a good combination to play with it.
Awesome. We got Parag here has kind of a general question. It might be something that we choose to discuss later as a group too, is like, how does Superset compare to other popular data visualization tools in terms of popularity or features, et cetera? Is there anything you'd like to comment on that as far as how it compares to other tools at this point and kind of where you see it similar or different from others?
I come from the proprietary world, you know. As I mentioned, I worked for 10 years in Vertica. That is an awesome database, but it's proprietary. But I see is that the world is moving to open source. You know, I feel like that is the next model. I saw it when I was with Vertica that people say, I don't want to be tied to your roadmap. I prefer open source because I can use your managed service or I can use your enterprise services, but if you don't have time to build me my features, I can go to the open source and do it, you know? And I think that gives a lot of freedom to the people and to the companies. And I completely see the world moving to open source, you know? Like open source and SaaS, you know, I think it's the new business model. And you don't have too many visualization tools. It's like that are open source well done, you know. You used to have Redash, it was acquired, but Databricks, you know, so nobody else work on that now. But like you see, Superset is adopted in Leaf, in Airbnb, in Apple, you know, in many of the company. I don't see that the open source is going to be like over. So I don't know your experience, but what do you think? But I truly believe that people are moving from the open source. And as a feature, it might not have all the charts and everything that you need from Tableau, but I'm wondering how many of those things you need. You're like, I saw Tableau For many years, I used Tableau with my other customer, MicroStrategy, you know, whatever, like name it. All my customers at Vertica, they use the different visualization tool. But the truth is that they normally have the bar line, the line chart, you know, some geospatial to show some things, but you really don't use all the charts. And if you think the library that we have, it is amazing. And if you go, let me show you eCharts. That is the library that we're integrating now. In theory, you should be able to add any of those charts now, because the whole plugin that we have, it is based to integrate data charts from eChart. So we're gonna get there. So like that.
How about any open source competitors out there?
If you have competitors, I don't know if I will call it competitors in the way that I might have a chart here. You know that I track the sheet have, and I used to have a chart. I don't remember exactly the name, but I used to have a chart that open source visualization source, you know, that I just wanted to compare us, you know, with other visualization tools that are open source. That the one that I know are Apache Superset, Redash that no longer is there, and Metabase, you know. And if you compare, you know, it's like that is last year, but if I put no filter and you see the code changes, the adoption of the people and things like that, it's like a kind of like it's gonna take time to catch up, you know.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Like if you see here, this is visualization issues closed. You see Redash is kind of stale, you know. PRs merge, you know, over time. So I think that the one that I know is Metabase, but I think it's more based on asking questions to the more in the semantic query language, you know, and building charts on the top of that, but not as a data platform that you can do queries, you can do charts, you can do dashboards, you can integrate with something else.
Cool. Few more questions here. One is, does it support Delta Lake as a source? Specifically asked about Databricks Delta Lake, but Delta Lake, Databricks Delta Lake, or any of those things you can connect directly to?
So Daniel is working now.
That's what I'm working on now, actually. It should be possible. I have to test it, but there's a Databricks dialect for SQL Alchemy. I'll paste it there. And you should be able to install this in Superset and make it work. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't even know that SQL Alchemy had that. I should check that out. Cool. We have a more in-depth question. Do you see it, Daniel? I don't know if you want to respond to the. I kind of want to read that out loud. But if you're able to, what kind of database do you recommend for large volume and highly dimensional data sets meant for visualization?
I think Eugenia, you might know better than me on this now.
Are you seeing this one?
Sorry, I was reading the question and I missed the one that you talked. So can you repeat?
Yeah, I'll read it out to you. So what kind of database do you recommend for large volume and highly dimensional data sets meant for visualization? So they're talking data that's refreshed once a day with 2,000 to 3,000 end users, and they're trying to find a good balance of cost and performance.
It's like if the pen of your data is highly dimensional, that means that probably you have low cardinality fields, you know, like maybe a lot of metrics. So probably you need to focus in a database that compress the data very well, so you don't have a lot of expense in storage. If you're gonna be refreshing once, 2 times per day and that many users, I will recommend you to use Superset, because it's like you can cache the output of all your visualization and you won't be hitting the database that much, you know? So, because most of the databases that you use now, like a BigQuery, it's like a databases that can scale with your volume, like a serverless, like a BigQuery, Snowflake. They charge you for the amount of queries that you do, you know? So if you're gonna be loading the data once per day, it's like or not that often, put a tool like a Superset at the top, and try to improve the database in good storage. If you have a good compression rate, it's like most of the time in the queries is when you try to do the scan and read, but if the data is very well compressed, it's like it should be cheaper and faster. I heard about this.
That was
like,
my question.
Today I have a meeting with the people from ClickHouse, and I heard a lot of things about. I haven't tried it, but I was impressed with all the benchmarks that they were saying. It's like it is another open source database, seems to be very popular right now, and we're working to make a better connector so it works better with Superset and Preset.
Yeah, thank you, Eugenia, for the talk. That was my question about the highly dimensional data sets. We're primarily using Snowflake right now as our primary analytics data warehouse, and was just wondering if you've kind of seen patterns over the course of your time with Superset with regards to people using Redis as the cache and maybe Snowflake as the primary storage, and how often is that cache really being kind of refreshed? So underlying data is probably being refreshed on a daily basis, sometimes every 8 hours. But in terms of performance, if you have several thousand people going in and filtering on each one of those dimensions, there's some joins that happen in the back end, joining multiple data sources. So I haven't tried it out with Redis yet, but I've been looking into Druid. I wasn't sure if you've seen patterns of what other customers are using with Redis, Druid, or possibly other combinations.
Yeah, I don't know if you have your data normalized. When you're talking about, it's like you can have highly dimensional. If you have a flattened, Druid could be a good option. It's a multi-parallel processing and MPP. You can add more workers and it works, but the join doesn't work very well, So you really have to. You cannot do, if you have an star schema, you won't be able to use Druid. Is why it's not
Right.
good. But if you use Redis, it's like I become very familiar. It's like I don't want it to, I worked 10 years for Vertica, so I really know it very well. And they have something that is called Vertica Eon mode, but I don't want it to promote them that much. That what they do is to cache the data that they use a cache in your ephemeral storage, but they keep all the historic data in the S3 bucket. And it separates the compute from the storage, so it scale out very nice because you can say, okay, at 3 o'clock I have 2,000 users. I'm gonna put more compute nodes. I can use spot images, the thing that it can make it faster. And your data, it is kept in the S3 storage. There is a nice paper that Intuit wrote. I probably can find it. How they use some of the AWS cache with this Eon to get the performance that they need for the taxes season. I can share that paper if I find it. It was written by somebody in Amazon. But like the big thing, I see a lot of people using Snowflake, but I also see that they got really good credits. And when those credits expire, it becomes so expensive. So I saw them, it's like I say, okay, I'm moving my historic data, to a Parquet and use Presto. It's like they are in Amazon, they just put a tin at the top of that and try to use a Presto connector to join both of the data.
We tried doing that, but Presto's not great with joins.
It's not great with joins.
I could speak on Snowflake a little bit. So what she touched on briefly there a minute ago was normalizing the data. And so we'll run some Airflow jobs that kick off after the other ones. I'll create some tables with cluster keys and merge in, using those keys and like a hash diff, an MD5 hash diff. It'll make it pretty efficient to merge into these new tables. And then the tables are so much smaller And Snowflake has its own caching mechanism at that point that you could connect your preset superset instance just to that schema or to that database or however you want to isolate it, and that'll save on it hitting your large business layer and running those large compute costs. But also taking, if you're taking that on a schedule, not all the time, you're saving on that cost there, and then merging into the new tables with the cluster keys picked accordingly in a hash diff. You can also save on the compute time that it takes to merge those in. So all that will cut your costs down quite a bit. And then Superset preset has been doing really well at hitting those kinds of tables and modeling off of that. So
Okay.
One
sounds good.
database that I heard a lot, I don't know if they're just talking to me too much because they wanted to have support, is this one. And I know that they did a webinar. It's a new database, and they got a webinar comparing them with Snowflake, with performance and cost and everything. So I haven't used it, but I heard a lot of them lately,
Yeah, the name sounds familiar. I've probably seen some advertisements by them, but I haven't looked into them yet.
Yeah, I haven't tried it either, but
I've
yeah.
literally never heard of that. I don't know where that's interesting. I've never heard of that database tool. Now I'm curious.
Yeah, it's like I work with some people with the implied team that is through it, and they got several people moving to that company, and probably that is they're reaching out through that. So I really didn't try it, but I think that you can do a POC. It's so easy now to get access to these databases, and the beauty, if it is SQL compliant, is that you really just need to move the data, and try the queries, and you can migrate easily from one to another.
Is there any joining of data sets? Like with Tableau, there's ways to have different data sets at semantic layer and join across them. It's usually not great, but it's doable if you're careful about it. Is that something that's possible?
You can do it. It's like when you see data set, if they come from the same database, you can do joins here. You can write your query with a join. We don't have a UI that you just can drag and drop the tables and say, oh, here is a link. It's like they are thinking about doing it. But you cannot take data from BigQuery and Vertica and do a join, both of them. You have to put a federation layer, probably a Presto or something, that can combine both of them.
Okay.
So that answer, are you talking about in the same database or different databases?
Kind of either way. So I was picturing the data set. Maybe I'm picturing the data set has like a semantic model on top of the data. So I might already have a query that's joining cases to some location lookup info, and that's the data set, and it's got the kind of business friendly names on it, and then I can take that and join to some other query that I've mapped to business names as a data set. So I'm thinking of Tableau and Power BI when I hear data set, like what they do. Am I misunderstanding, or is that about it?
Yeah, it's like, I think that it's like you can write your query as complicated as you want. You can merge it. It's like and then you're gonna go here to your data set. I don't know if I have a complex query here, but for example, let's take this one. And you can just take the columns, if they have because you have different columns, you can label the columns differently,
Yeah.
This is kind of new dead, or like what is kind of semantic layer, that you just go, they do it there. I think that you say that, and then you can put a description, and so to make it easier, and then when you save it, that is your semantic layer. When you save it, you have all this information as a tooltip, like a blah blah, then you can start to use it.
Then could I write a query that uses another BigQuery data set and uses like these names that I'm used to seeing in Superset?
You have the ability, it's like yes, and you have the ability to export this, and this is coming something better. It creates a YAML file that you later can import it back,
New version control stuff?
I don't know if you see the description, but this data set, And it creates the YAML file that you can edit. You can change it there outside of this screen, and you can use it to import, again, a data set, probably change it from something else. This is the old version. I know that next week the new version is coming. I don't think I can show you. I need to stop. It's showing in my other screen. But it's a YAML file where you need the column description. Let me stop sharing so I can share this. So you see what you see. You see, it's like you get the column name, the description, the types, and you get all the information that later you can import. What is the schema, what is the query that you have at the top, and then you can modify the YAML file and import it back. Make sense?
Yeah, that's cool.
And that also help you, this like with version controlling, because you can just export the data, those are exposed APIs, and you just can use GitHub or something. If somebody goes and that's your data set or your semantic layer, you just can have version controlling with GitHub or something of those files.
Cool. And then is there any sort of community edition or like free trial version for just people in the meetup that want to learn just for their own benefit to use preset, or would they be better off going the Apache Superset route if they're not with the company?
For preset, it's like you can use, it's very simple to use. If you go to GitHub, just clone the repository. There is actually in the blog post, preset.io. There is a blog post that is getting started. No, it's getting started, this one, that just go do a sheet clone, CD, Docker Compose app, you're ready to go.
Okay, cool.
You use, I think I have it shut down, but you just use the local, you can change the configuration and things like that. We have a Slack community, it's very active. You can also comment, in the GitHub repository if you have issues, and be part of the community.
Awesome. Any last questions on Superset?
If you have questions, I can check later in the silo and email you. My email is also very simple. It's Eugenia@preset.io, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing and joining us this evening.